I can answer some of the questions that Rosa had too. So whenever
Yeah,
like,
let's hold on that. I want to level set first, and then Eliana will jump right into that. But let's make that the bulk of the meeting. But just for my edification, I recognize some of the names on here, but would you all just mind popping your camera on for 30 seconds and just identifying yourself? Okay, there's David. Hey David, good seeing you again.
Hey.
Zach, good seeing you. How you doing? Happy summer. And there's Cynthia. Got it. Steven's screen is blocked.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know why it's not coming up, but I hear you.
Yeah, good deal. And then Greg Lloyd or Gregory Lloyd. Why I can't picture you for some reason. I'm sorry.
He's from the sustainability committee, so he's our liaison from there.
Got it. Okay, so there's a liaison here as well. Good deal. Okay, welcome everybody. I appreciate you all showing up in a summer. Michael, do you have the schedule that I sent out? Could you just pop that up? I'll reintroduce myself. You all know me. I'm Kelly Litzner. As you knew last year, I was the vice chair of FAC under Rosa, who's the chair. In accordance with the plan that Rosa laid out 2 years ago, she is now the chair emeritus. I am now the chair, and we'll be looking for a vice chair this year that we will hopefully be able to nominate and approve, at our first meeting, which will be in September. It'd be great if it was one of you all. If not, then we still need to find members of the community to be part of the committee. So, yeah, David, if you could, or Michael, if you could just share that schedule. And yeah. So I sent out a calendar to everybody that I had on the FAC. And so it had dates and times and whatnot. Do you still have that, Michael? If not, I can pull it up in the invite.
Yeah, I do. Just give me a second on that one.
Sure. But anyways, for everyone's edification, this meeting, the next 3 meetings are specifically basically a subcommittee to discuss the pre-CIP, not the CIP, but the pre-CIP document that everyone has in hand at this point. What we want to do in this meeting today is just level set, talk about the calendar, what the pre-meetings will look like, what our homework will be over the next couple of weeks, and then ideally, this leads up to a FAC position on the pre-CIP guidance that will then be briefed out to the board in September. And then from there, we'll get into our regular FAC meetings, which will start kind of leapfrogging the school board as they make progress on the actual CIP. Liana, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're looking at the 25 to 34 CIP or the 24 to 25 to 34? Correct. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think as we've all learned and know, it's really the first 3 to 5 years of that CIP that's kind of real, and what will be voted on likely in the next election for bonds or anything else that we need. So our mission for the year will be the CIP, but the mission of this kind of subcommittee of the willing will be to look at the pre-CIP guidance and go forward. Let me just share. I have it right here, Michael. I'm just going to share. Just please ignore my horrific work screen. But let's see. Is this the email I sent out? Gosh, now I'm going to get into it. Sorry. Here we go. No? Gosh. Any luck, Michael? You have any more luck than me?
I have some dates that we picked for the meetings and then sort of the summary of what you wanted to discuss on those.
Yeah, do you have it that you can pull it
Yeah.
up?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, please do. Sorry. All right, so for everyone's edification, Rosa and I met, did a handover at the beginning of July. And what I had laid out is kind of a basic schedule for us to kind of look at and say, okay, it's July 20th. This is Bring Your Questions Day. Obviously, if you don't have questions or you haven't read it yet, which I'm sure a lot of people are in that boat, that's fine. What we're doing today is kind of just taking a quick look at the CIP, the pre-CIP guidance, and having Ileana and Michael weigh in. 2 weeks from now, we'll meet. That'll be ideally we kind of fine-tooth comb the first half of the CIP, and then come back and make comments. So we want to provide questions today to the just initial questions if you have any to the APS staff, and we come back. In 2 weeks, we're going to review in detail and provide more feedback to the staff. And then on August 17th, second half of the pre-CIP guidance, ideally, we have other questions that have come up through the week, and that'll give APS staff a chance to answer them. So by the end of the meeting on the 17th, and if we could just scroll down, by the end of the meeting on the 17th, we should have all the feedback that we need. And then as the FAC, then we will provide a draft to the school board. So we're going to create a draft by the 30. What did I have? 30. See the 20. See the 17th, 24th would be the 31st. We'll have a draft, and then we'll put it out for comment. So that there won't be a meeting that day. We're just going to put a draft out for comment so that everybody on the subcommittee can look at it. And then we'll have our first FAC meeting on September 11th. So our first official FAC meeting will typically happen in October. This is a very important year, as Rose outlined, with the Nottingham swing space potential, or whatever other school that is. Phase 2 of the Career Center site, Phase 1 beginning. And then, if I'm not mistaken, the feedback from the subcommittee that we had 2 years ago, where they formulated criteria for how to rank the schools in terms of 3 or 4 major criteria and all the sub-criteria. So that'll be our homework for the year, and we're going to get kicked off early. That presentation to the school board on the 15th of September. I'll submit our position on the 15th. To Rose's point, perhaps we'll have a position by then on Nottingham or on swing space or on Phase 2, but maybe not. And then we'll get into our regular rhythm of the FAC meetings. In the meantime, the school board will be voting on the pre-CIP guidance. We'll be working on or preparing to work on the regular CIP. And that'll be our work for the rest of the year. 2 other notes, and then I want to open up for questions before handing over to Michael and Ileana. The first note is I have a meeting with, oh, this is bad. I'm sorry. Who's our representative this year, Michael? Thank you. Mary Cadera.
Mary Cadera.
I have a meeting with Mary that's supposed to happen the week after next, just so we could chat. Rosa, I think you're going to be there as well. So we're going to sync with her and get some more guidance from her and what the school board would like us to focus on. And then the second thing is we haven't quite picked out the slate of where the meeting locations will be. So these first 3 are going to be virtual for the summer, so that you can kind of attend from wherever you are. And then we're going to go back in person in September. So with that, are there any, if you have a question, if you wouldn't mind just raising your virtual hand, and we'll answer those. And then I'm going to switch over to Michael. If you could pull the pre-CIP up, and maybe him and Ileana could just take us through it real quick. Any burning questions? Okay, great. So Ileana, Michael, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Kelly. Really nice overview of the work that you all have to take on the next few weeks. So definitely, I would encourage everyone to peruse the tremendous work that the planning team and collaboration with FNO has produced, the pre-CIP report. And also, if you haven't been able to watch the work session that happened on June 29th, so that's also posted online. it's like if you don't have time to really look into deeply into every page, like we do go over like the big buckets, I would say, in the work session. And so that is very helpful. Also, in terms of like the questions, I'm really happy to talk about the community table sessions, and I'm excited that Kelly, you'll be joining us. And then if anybody else would like to join us also, that are happening on July 31st and August 22nd. And more importantly, for like the questions, if we can get those in writing as a FAC, if you want to choose like I think sometimes we get like a liaison. If you want to designate one person to make it easier so we don't get everyone emailing us at once, that would be great. Or if you want to go through you, Kelly, that's fine too. Just whatever process works. So then we can capture them and we can make sure that we're responding. We are getting, as you can imagine, a plethora of questions from the community. And so we are responding to them as they come in, and I can see how some overlap is happening too. So I do want to be just mindful of that, and we'll definitely get responses to your questions. I also wanted to add that on top of that, we are also, tomorrow you'll see on the website, we have frequently asked questions for every subtopic. So I think we've been monitoring some of the questions that we're getting, and we see themes. And so we want to make sure that we're capturing the most common questions and then making them frequently asked questions. Also, the questions that the board is asking, we're capturing them in the frequently asked questions. And then starting next week, we're starting to make videos about like the big topics like swing space, like what is swing space? Why do we need swing space? Why are we talking about swing space now? We haven't talked about swing space, you know, for a long time since the Wilson building. What is different? What's happening? Why? What's going on with projections? I thought we were growing. What are you talking about now that we're leveling off? So what we've heard from the community is, you got to simplify this for us. You know, you guys are in the technical realm. You've really got the technical down, but can you simplify it for us? Can you make it friendly so we understand, you know, why exactly some of the recommendations that are being recommended are being done. So the terms of the recommendations in the pre-CIP report, which are, I would say, there's 3 of them, is the repurposing Nottingham for swing space effective the school year 2026. So it's still 3 years out. The plan for future phases of the Arlington Career Center campus, so you're on target for that, Kelly. But also is the conducting a full middle school boundary process for the school year 2025-26. So the recommendation is for a full middle school boundary process in the fall, but the boundary process is happening this fall, but it wouldn't take into effect until 2 school years after, so 25-26. Yeah, you have a question?
So that the third, you're saying again, just to clarify the dates, the middle school rebound, the boundary process starting in the fall is this fall, not next fall.
Right. Yeah. So that's the third. So I think it's important for me to kind of explain that a little bit, because it feels a little bit like, well, why is it in the pre-CIP report, right? Like the pre-CIP report is really laying that foundation for the CIP. And so if we don't manage enrollment, right, and if we're not able to make sure that we are managing enrollment across the schools, then it does become a CIP item. Like we would have to add relocatables, we would have to make make bigger schools or build schools. And so we decided to add this recommendations in the pre-CIP report, but there is a full boundary process in the fall. So we're still doing a full boundary process, a full engagement process in the fall. We just made sure that we talked about it in the pre-CIP report so people can actually get it ahead of time. So instead of us publishing it in September, we published it in the end of June. So people could have an opportunity to read and peruse the recommendation, and then have an opportunity to go over the planning unit review data and provide that feedback. And we've actually started to get a lot of feedback too. And so the full proposal is coming out in the fall, but we wanted to make sure that people knew that this was coming. And so we did write about it and recommend it in the pre-CIP report. So those, if I would say, what are the biggest things that are in the pre-CIP report, I think those are the big buckets. And then of course we have other informational items that we have in there. We have results of APS initiatives addressing enrollment. So that's a study that our team conducted, like when we've done boundaries in the past, or like when we do neighborhood and targeted transfers, have they been effective? Do they work? And so we did a reflective analysis of that. We also included different ideas in terms of how to measure school program capacity. So you think of a school and you think of what is inside of a school. We always think about building design capacity, which is how many students fit in a school. But when you think about the programs in a school, sometimes a classroom has a maximum of 16 kids, for example, because of VPI, but the building design capacity says 24. So there's a little bit of a conflicting information. So we did a case study on a sample school, and we're hoping that we'll be able to maximize that and get a consultant to help us with that. So we get a better picture of what our schools actually look like and not just the building design capacity. So a lot of really interesting information in our pre-CIP report. Also, projections are in there, our enrollment management plan is in there, so extremely robust. But I would say that definitely if you don't get to read all of it, I would say watch the work session. And then if you want to have a little bit more of a staff time, I would say for the community table sessions, our point is that we know that some of the information is dense. And so we want to make sure that our community has time to ask questions. And so for the community table sessions, there is going to be, we open it up with just a general 101 of what the pre-CIP report is. What's the difference between this and the AFSAP, which we've done in this meeting before. And so bring everyone up to speed. And then we're going to move into rotations, 20-minute rotations, but people are going to decide where they want to go. So if they want to hear about swing space, they can go for 20 minutes and hear about 5-minute overview on swing space and then 15-minute Q&A. And then if they want to hear about the results of APS initiatives, so like the reflection of, did it work? Did the boundary changes work? Did the targeted neighborhood transfers work? They can hear about it for 5 minutes and then Q&A for 15 minutes. And that'll be with an expert presenter from planning and eval and a facilitator. And so those are 2 topics. And then the other topics we have is a long-range renovation plan for existing facilities, which will be done by our partners in F&O. So that's what's coming out in September, the list of prioritized schools that need renovations, which is why we, the CIP direction that we got in the last CIP was to find swing space, because this is coming out. So that goes in tandem. So that's why we're deciding to include it in the rotation as well. So people are brought up to speed so they can learn about that more. And then the other one we have is the middle school boundary recommendation report, because it also has the dual language program move. And so those are the 4 rotations, different topics that are going to be available, but we're doing 3 rotations. So people are going to have an opportunity to go to 3 different rotations, 20-minute cycles, and then we're going to be able to debrief. So the whole community table session is 2 hours. We're starting with an introduction of 20 minutes, and we're hoping that FAC, Kelly, that you and hopefully JFAC will like to do some remarks in the beginning, thinking about like you're also there to listen to them, because it is going to be anyone can join these meetings. It's not just limited to specific subgroups. So it's anyone in the community can join. And so we're hoping that you'd like to say some remarks in the beginning, and then we'll go to the rotations, and then we'll wrap it up. So that's going to be done on July 31st. So it's coming up virtually because of summer. And then we're also going to do it in person on August 22nd at Kenmore Middle School. And it's going to be the exact same thing, except that we're going to be in person. So those are the 2 opportunities that we have for the community to interact with staff in terms of these big buckets. But we also heard from our Nottingham community, and we heard from our middle school community that they wanted targeted engagement sessions. So in September, on September 5th, we're going to have a middle school Spanish immersion session specific to that community, but anybody can attend. And then on September 11th, we're going to have a Nottingham swing space engagement opportunity specific to that community, but anybody can attend. So when you think about the community table sessions, we want to make sure that it's more of like, it's about the pre-CIP report and it's collective, not specific to the recommendations, because 20 minutes, we can't cover a lot in 20 minutes, but it's definitely an avenue for people to voice their questions and their concern, where we're going to be capturing, and we're also collecting all of this feedback, because we're compiling and we're looking at themes and we're analyzing to turn it over to the school board in September before they provide direction. So all of that is happening simultaneously right now through all the emails and messages and phone calls we get, but also we're going to continue doing that through all the engagement that we're doing in the summer and in the fall. So the September dates just came out today, so that's new. But Kelly, yes, question.
Sorry, what did you just say?
The September dates just came out today, so that's definitely brand new.
Yeah, no, it's good. So I'll start there. We have a FAC meeting now scheduled on September 11th. How is that going to affect? Is this meeting for 9 a.m. earlier in the day, or is it going to be completely overlapped with the FAC meeting?
These are virtual meetings. They were really hard to.
Are they? Were you with the? Sorry, this is Rosa interrupting.
Okay.
Are they all? Is the September 11th one 20 minutes as well?
No, it's an hour
Okay.
and a half.
Okay. All right. Never mind then.
Yeah.
Do you have the time on it? I have another question, but do you have the timing on that one?
The timeline for that one?
What time at night that it'll happen, or during the day?
Yeah, 6 to 7:30.
Okay, so right over our meeting. So we might, let's just have a look at that and see if it makes sense to either move our meeting or have it and maybe participate in the first part of it virtually while we're all present. And it'd be an odd way to start the first meeting, but we can look at that.
Yeah.
Either way. The second thing, Rosa, I can make the 31st, but I will be not physically here on the 22nd of August. I'll be in Michigan. Can you cover that one for me?
Yeah, I can. I think I can attend. I think all of them. I haven't double checked the latest dates, but the ones from before I know I was around for. Would you want to try to get more FAC participation in those, Ileana, in terms of like when you do like the breakouts? So it sounds like, when you do the virtual meetings, you're going to have everybody in one room and then they can separate into essentially rooms and talk about specific issues. Would you want us to try to get more FAC attendance so that we could send FAC people into those rooms to listen in? Or, I mean, I don't know, obviously, if, who if we can or not get enough people, but
Yeah, I think it would be helpful for you all to have, have the opportunity to listen to what they're asking and what they're saying. It's going to be recorded too. I mean, if you can't come, we're recording, because we think that's also important for people to be able to go back and look and hear. But we were thinking that you all could help us facilitate a little bit with like calling on people's, like, oh, Steve, you have a question, and you, Zach, you have a question. So then staff could really work on answering the questions and not worry about the logistics. I mean, that would be my ask in terms of collaboration. But if we have Kelly and at least one more, if we could at least have two, that would be great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we can definitely try to do something like that for sure. And then I guess I would imagine the first one might be messy, and then we'll be able to know what we're doing better for the second one.
Yeah, and I am trying
yeah.
to do like a quick training next Friday at 1, and I can move it to if we need to, because I know we all work. And so, but just to go over like norms and how to, help facilitate. I know you all have facilitated too. So, but just to make sure we can kind of keep it going. Because I know one of the things we've seen through like the ACC process is we want to make sure that it is an inclusive process and we're hearing all voices. And so like giving people kind of, these are the types of topics you can ask questions about. And so pick your favorite question. And then if you have more questions, just email us and we do respond, within our time frame. And so just to make sure that everybody has a chance to ask their question.
Okay, thank you for that. Cynthia had a question. I was just looking back up in the chat, whether or not the school board specific questions were called out in your FAC? Like these are the ones the board is asking versus the community, or is it just, you know?
FAQ. Right now, we've done it all together because they've been really similar.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Can I just jump in and say, I think it would be helpful to us, maybe you don't pull, identify it on the web page, but I think it would be helpful to the committee to know which ones were being asked by school board members.
Definitely. Thank you. I can make note of that, and I can take that back to my team. I think that's an easy edit.
And then Kelly could distribute that to us so we would be aware.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Ileana, do you want to continue, or are we moving into the pre-CIP document at this point?
That's it for me in terms of, I just wanted to give everyone kind of like a big picture idea, and thank you for reading it. The team worked really hard on it, and so thank you for reading all our work. And I'm here to answer any logistical questions, but definitely the in-depth questions, please send them my way, or if you choose a liaison, happy to answer them.
Super, thank you.
Thank you.
David, would you mind pulling up the pre-CIP report and just giving a very, from staff's perspective, quick overview of the meat of it, and then like skipping through the annexes, what's in each of the annexes as we start looking at our homework for the next 4 weeks?
I think you wanted Michael.
Did I say Michael? I'm sorry, David. I apologize.
That's all right. I'd love to
David.
help, but I think Michael knows a lot more about this than I do.
Probably. All right, go ahead, Michael.
All right, so I have one screen here, so you're gonna have to be patient with me when it comes to not being able to see if people's hands are up and stuff like that. So I already dumped into the chat sort of the meat and potatoes of the report that you all kind of need to focus on, and Ileana's kind of already sort of, talked about those as the buckets. There's a lot of information in here. If y'all haven't even opened it, it's 272 pages. So yeah, make a cup of tea, I guess. The ones that we've already kind of discussed, which are the ones that are going to be, most pressing, are the ones that, like I said, I've already kind of put into the chat box, but I'm not sure of how you want or how you envision this going down, Kelly. Do you want us to just kind of jump into each one, and then we can just kind of, broadly, scroll over them, or do you? Because you asked
me not today. Not today. No, what I wanted to do, like, let's look at the table of contents, and I just wanted to see each section. But if I'm not mistaken, the main report, it might be 207 pages, but the main report is only less than that by a long shot, right? Yeah, 36 pages.
Correct.
So what would be, in your mind, a logical break? Is it just halfway, or is it?
Yeah, I mean,
2 and 3.
I would say to look at 3 and 4. To sort of, if you only had a certain amount of time, those are the two that I would kind of focus on. The planning proposals and studies that inform the planning of the next CIP. Those are kind of that's the gist of it, that this group will kind of be involved with over the coming year and into the next. So yeah, I would just crack into that one. The other information, it's not as though it's not needed. It's some background information that would be helpful, but I believe that this group is sort of already, aware of some of these topics that we have covered within here. Yeah. So
could you scroll down to the appendices real quick?
Yeah. You want to go down to the appendix?
I just want to see the appendices again.
Sure. Yeah.
Here you go.
Yeah, so this is pretty much a data dump of the amount of information that was either done in preparation for this document, 2, done as part of just an annual preparation of data that's used for planning purposes, or has already existed. So some of this information, obviously is already online, and there's some of it that, we've already sort of looked at in the past. There are certain things in here that the group might not be as familiar with. And if we had to highlight, let me just scroll here real quick. Yeah, if we had to highlight any of these that the group might not be familiar with, would kind of be, so there's Appendix H, Appendix I, Appendix J, right, and K. Those ones are new to this report. So, and I don't believe that the FAC has laid eyes on those. So I would be, if you, again, had a limited amount of time and you kind of wanted just to, oh, I'm already familiar with the enrollment projections and, school facilities and enrollment management plans. And yeah, I'd kind of hone in on those ones. Okay.
Yeah, so Michael, I'm gonna open the floor up just to get everyone's opinion, but I don't want us, 207 pages, given everyone's schedule, but also very important work. If we split halfway, it doesn't make sense. If you skip the prelude, the continuation may not make sense. I'm thinking maybe, and I already know Rose has read it and made comments, so all of us are at different levels right now. Maybe what we should do is just read the main piece and skim the appendices and then see what the initial questions are. And then maybe the second homework session is to dig into the sticky stuff. Maybe there's stuff that we kind of all agree, because at the end of the day, the fact we have to vote on a document that we agree on and put forward to the board as, we support it, we don't support it, these are recommended changes, whatever that is. But I think what we maybe should do is read the document if you haven't. And if you have, that's great. And then come back with questions. And then maybe skim the appendices just to see how it attaches to the main one. And then in the second round, after the initial questions have come in and we've had another hour to discuss it, then we dig into some of the sticky stuff that we don't agree on or that we need to have more information on for homework 2. And then we can do another round of final questions and then then spend that last part of August putting out a draft report. Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
I guess I kind of, I think that's a good way to do it, and I'm just sort of, and not to sound like a broken record, but the driver of usually these types of reports is the enrollment, right? So we've all been, we were given a presentation by Robert Ruiz on the enrollment. Everyone is aware that the projections show that it's going to be, very moderate growth over the next 5 years, if that. And then it's going to be a slight decline in enrollment. So that is a major, component that's driving this CIP. You have to be aware that, we wouldn't have the luxury to do some of these projects that have been identified if that were the case. And I think that needs to be everyone needs to keep that in mind, right? Nottingham wouldn't be able to exist if we had, relocatables at all the elementary schools that are being utilized by students right now. So.
No, it's helpful. Others, again, on the table right now for us is read the CIP, skim the appendices, and then great question, Cynthia. I would say 2 days prior to the next meeting would be ideal so that I can consolidate and get to the staff so they can have a opportunity to answer them before we, or be prepared to answer them in our next meeting, and then we can discuss. And then I think the second, 2 weeks we spend on the sticky stuff, digging into that, asking additional questions. So anyone else have an opinion on this? Any hands? Anyone? All right, Rosa, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I just, you know, I would kind of just throw it back at Ileana about how long it maybe takes to answer some of those questions, you know, so like I think we would probably want to feed, you know, multiple kind of questions. Like if we're getting into the meat of a topic, then we might have more questions, you know, but I feel like, you know, I think that there's, like, I think if there's open items that we can't even discuss something without having additional information on it, then I think we would want that more than 2 days in advance of a meeting. And then I think we would want that. And obviously we'd want to make sure Ileana had enough time to respond to it, or their team, staff, you know, wherever, you know, to kind of get us that additional information. I'm not necessarily saying that there's huge, that I'm not trying to say that there's gaps. It's just, you know, I don't know.
Ileana, what's a reasonable amount of time? Like when do you need questions by?
Yeah, thank you for the consideration too. So we've been doing about 72 business hours. So for turnaround, that's been our goal.
Business hours. So that's
Yeah.
like a week and a half, or if a week and 4
No,
days.
no, we count 24, like 3 days.
Oh, you said business hours. So
I know.
I didn't think you worked 24 hours a day.
But I mean, we're doing like three days pretty much.
So basically,
Okay,
these
okay.
meetings are on Thursday, so I'd say Monday, close of business, which is
Yeah,
5 p.m. on the East Coast.
especially like if there's a lot, like just think about it, right? If there's like 10 questions and our staff is also getting other 20 questions, like it's just the sooner like you all can agree on the questions, you know, the better. Even if it's like if you decide that Monday is the day of every Monday that you're going to send me a batch of questions, that's okay.
Mhm.
Or whatever process.
Okay.
So I think, and I don't know, I'm being presumptuous here, but potentially some of the questions might be answered by the FAQ, Ileana. Is that safe to say?
I think so, but you know, those are being published tomorrow, the first
Mhm.
batch. And so I think a lot of them, but really like you got to read the stuff because or else like it doesn't make sense, honestly. And the appendices, it does include a plethora of information in terms of the swing space. Like if you don't read the first report, you're not going to understand the second report. So, you know, you got to, and those are short reports. And so same with the boundaries. And so I would say that those are important to read. Because a lot of the questions we get is like, why didn't you consider this? And we're like, we did. Why didn't you consider this? We did. You know, so it's like, we want to make sure that the questions that are being asked are, you know, also robust and.
So I have another question that's kind of piggybacking off of Cynthia's. Will the FAQs have school board questions in them?
They do, and so I'm taking it back to my team to decide if we're gonna be able to put like school like SB or whatever, like school board.
SB, yeah, FUs, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, because I know that we just did those, so I was looking at the responses to some of them today. That was, you know, and I was just curious if that was. I didn't want to spill the beans, but that's why I was saying I think some questions, if people just sort of, you know, even skim over the report, might just, you know, be very similar to some that were already asked that I know of.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we're trying to be transparent. So we're just trying to make sure that we're answering them, and then get, you know, make sure that everybody that needs to see them first sees them first, get them approved, and then push them forward.
And before we go to Rosa, just a quick follow up on the long range planning study. Do you have the data now? Are they done doing the survey, or are they done in August? I think I asked this question like 3 times, and I think Michael, you've said August every time.
Yeah, we have discussed this quite a bit. I think they will be done with this, the data part of it, but then they have to, you know, they have to crunch the data. So we're not going to see the report until the beginning of September-ish. But like
the
I
reason
mentioned,
that comes up for me is because I think the best use of our first meeting would be to have an outbrief to the FAC on, we'll vote on the document, but the document will have been done basically. But then to have maybe the topic of that first meeting is literally the long range planning, because that will inform what we think in terms of the CIP.
Yeah, we have some housekeeping, Kelly, that you and I and Rosa need to sort of formalize. And in that is what you just mentioned. The consultants are all very eager to receive feedback specifically from the FAC on this report because of your involvement, one, and two, because of the actual feedback you gave on the first part of it, which was just the framework and guidelines. They really appreciate that. They thought that that kind of helped them shape this. So when we had a meeting with them last week, it was stated that around that September 11th is what I said would be potentially our first meeting. And they were, oh, yeah, definitely. So,
Right. Okay.
I mean, fingers crossed, right?
Pre-FAC.
The
Yeah. Pre-FAC meetings that we got set up, we'll talk about that.
Yes, that's right. But so the main issue that always comes about this type of information is that it has to go to the school board first. So what we are anticipating is that Friday before, which would be the 8th, I think, it would have to be in the Friday letter to the school board. So the school board receives it, and then we can share it with the FAC. It's just sort of a formality that we have to follow as, being a civil servant.
Of course. Rosa, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess, we're talking about some of these things, and, the dates in September maybe are not necessarily squishy, but like our September 15th internal deadline that we wanted to hand in our kind of report is really based off of the dates that are outlined in the pre-CIP report for, kind of gathering, all of the input from like the community and that sort of thing. So, and not completely knowing which school, when we're presenting to the school board prior to their vote, like knowing that they're voting, I guess, in October on it, so I think if we hear more from the school board in terms of what that schedule really is, then we might be able to push back our September meeting, and maybe our formal recommendations go in a little later than September 15th. I don't know. I'm just saying that kind of is a little bit gray. I think what we've proposed is if we need to have our stuff turned in on the 15th, then we absolutely have to, kind of work backwards from there. And so we have to meet. Where I was kind of going with that is that if the Nottingham meeting is also on the 11th, I don't know politically if it will look very good if FAC kind of does not listen to that. I think we need to be part of that. I think we need to kind of show that we are listening to that community, and kind of make our official decisions, even though we maybe have discussed a lot of stuff over the summer, we would make our official decisions as of, voting on something after that meeting, after the 11th. If Nottingham is meeting on the 11th, then we would want to probably postpone, assuming that we also don't have to turn in our stuff on the 15th. So,
or we just shoot a day. We can work that out.
Okay.
Now that we've got those dates, I don't think that's. I think you're right, Rosa. I don't think we're gonna push
no,
one
okay.
day or something.
I guess I just can add, so the dates that they're voting is the October 12th and the 26th. So those are done. Those are, yeah, I think you know that. But also so we're following the same timeline, which is why we had to do September 5th and the 11th. But the latest in terms of the letter, because I spoke to our communications person, because I was like, when is the latest that, it's the 22nd? And I think I told Michael too.
Okay.
So the 22nd is really like the latest that you would want to turn in your report.
Right, because they, at least in what I've experienced with giving them like our, because we go to a meeting and we give them our recommendations in person, or, we typically have done that for the CIP and our final report. And then our draft of that is supposed to go in a week before. And they do read it, at least this, they certainly, were ready to kind of ask me questions about it for the final report for last year, for example. They had read what I wrote before I came to present to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the latest that the letter could arrive is the 22nd in preparation, because they meet monthly, right? They don't meet every 2 weeks. How often does the school board meet?
Mm,
I mean, I guess if they're meeting the 12th and the 26th, that's definitely every 2 weeks. I don't know if they might meet every 2 weeks, but I don't know
they
if they're
meet every 2 weeks,
public
like Thursday
meetings.
meetings every 2 weeks. Yes.
Yeah, that's the reason I'm asking, is because then if we get in the 22nd, that's going to be a few days beforehand, but we can discuss that later. So like, I think I'm more inclined to stick with the 15th. So maybe, because I'm hoping by the 11th or the 12th or whatever day, our first order of business is we vote on the final draft document and send it, and then ideally get data back from the renovations. So we'll talk about that later.
Okay.
The only
Go ahead,
one
Elliot.
other clarification I wanted to add for like the summer sessions, I'm not going to be available to come to so this is only summer session I can come to, but we will be answering the questions through writing. So we will be sending those, but I just want to make sure.
No, that's great. So I think I know I'm trying to like keep us on time, and we have 7 minutes left. So I think we know what we need to know to get going. If you haven't done your homework, and I will raise my hand and say I'm just as guilty, the homework for the next 2 weeks is read the first 36 pages and skim the appendices. Send in any questions to me, please, directly, maybe CC Rosa, so we have a backup, and then I will consolidate them and send them. I'll probably just send them in one tranche, Juliana, unless I get a time, then I'll send them early. But if they start trickling in, I will get them to you not later than 2 Mondays from now, before
Yeah.
5 o'clock.
Kelly, so when
And
do you
David,
want?
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just saying, just clarify. When do you want to hear back from us by?
Anytime between now and July 30th.
Okay.
So that I can submit our questions on, it should be the 30th is a Monday, or is it a Sunday?
30th is
Should just
30th
look
is
here.
Sunday.
So
Sunday.
31st. So send me your questions before the 30th. By the 30th would be great, or the morning of the 31st, so that I can consolidate them and send them to Ileana and Michael for disposition and roll up.
Got it.
That's action 1. And then we get to our meeting on that Thursday. We will talk about it, talk about our questions, get feedback directly from staff. And then once we kind of hash that out and come up with some additional maybe questions in the meeting, then we'll talk about what the sticky points are. What does the FAC agree on, and what do we not agree on? That's why I think reading the whole thing first, maybe we can all just write off section 1. Like, okay, we all agree on that. We get it. We understand it. It's defensible. We're fine. But section 3, Nottingham, real problem for half of us, no problem for the other half. Okay, that's a sticky issue. Talk about it in the meeting, and then let's go back and read in detail and maybe dig into the appendix, come up with additional questions that we'd like to see answered, and then kind of see if we can reach the goal is to reach an agreement, with a majority of us, so that when we're writing the final report, the FAC, when we voted in, it at least has a quorum. We have a quorum and we have a majority voting for it. It's not to say we're going to agree on everything. It's just to say this captures the concerns of the FAC. I mean, we're not even going to vote and say it has to be X or Y. I think we're just going to vote and say, do we accept that the facts, the members of the FAC were able to weigh in, and these are the concerns that they had, and these are the issues that the school board may want to look at more. And if we all agree that we've captured all of our concerns and those of our community, then we can send that to the school board for them to worry about whether or not, politically or otherwise, they want to act on it. So I don't think I'm saying we're going to take a position unless we're very strong as far as a group, but we will make sure we outline it. So that's where I think we can break the homework soon too. So go ahead, Rosa.
Oh, I had just kind of two quick generic fact questions, but I didn't want to interrupt you. So.
No, sorry, I'm done.
Okay. Okay.
Filibustering.
Yeah, I guess one of the things in the report is transportation. And so my question was generically, I'm pretty sure FAC does not cover transportation at all anymore, that that's not part of our charge. And the question would be, is it the purview of some other advisory group or committee, task force, something?
When did that happen, Rosa? Was I sleeping? Did I miss that?
They have a transportation advisory committee, but it might have gotten shut down. I thought it got disbanded, didn't it?
Correct. Yes, the ACTC is no longer functioning. JCTC, which is the county
Joint.
APS staff, is still moving forward. It was decided by both boards to dissolve the ACTC. Transportation is not mentioned in the charge for the FAC, but I mean, it does state in there that, you know, that the group is responsible, I think, for, you know, school board priorities. So however
Yeah.
loosely you want to interpret that.
Yeah, because what's interesting is sometimes boundaries of things are influenced by transportation options. And so we're dealing with facilities that have boundaries. And so it seems odd to make an arbitrary cutoff, but okay.
Well, maybe we just take it into consideration and talk about
Yeah.
it. We can add it as a footnote. We're a duly appointed committee, so we can do that. Before Rosa gets your second question, Cynthia, go ahead.
I just want to, I'm stunned to find out that we can't say anything about transportation. It seems to me we have on occasion, and if no one has assigned this, I mean, I think we should fill the void. But for instance, and I admit I have not, I've opened it, I haven't read anything. So Ileana, probably you've answered this 75,000 times, but if, for instance, Nottingham is becoming a permanent swing space for whenever you need, you know, to work on some school anywhere in the county, there's going to be a transportation component there to get kids over there, right? If I'm understanding that correctly. So it just seems to me that, you know, that's not something that can be ignored. Certainly this committee seems to me has weighed in, or maybe I'm confusing it with the BAC work I've been involved with about parking at different schools. So
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, we've definitely stuck our nose into that in the past, and it would seem odd to say, sure, Nottingham.
I think
the fact that it's
as
off in one corner of the county is irrelevant, right? Yeah.
right, and I think both of you are making a great point. So, and back to Rosa's point, I think let's just assume that we could comment on it. Maybe, you know, it's not we're not in a committee.
Until someone tells us not to.
We can comment on it. So yeah, great
that's
points. Rosa, go ahead with the second one, please.
Yeah, I mean, and in the end, I think our charge does say that we're allowed to kind of raise whatever we want to the school board too. So we can pretty much comment on anything we want.
So there.
My second thing was, well, okay, so this, Michael had touched on this, and it was about the projections. And I guess I just wanted to get a confirmation that what's in the report is essentially what we were presented during this past year. So it's not like we have to kind of delve into that data and be like, is there something different, or worry about that? Okay, just wanted to make sure I heard that. So, okay.
There is slight language change, but the substance is the same.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay. We're at the top of we're at the bottom of the hour, or whatever top or bottom we are at. Before we go, does anyone, by exception, Cynthia, I know you got your hand raised, but I think that's continued from before. Does anyone by exception want to raise their hand and ask any other questions or make any points? Going once, twice. Okay. Thank you. Great first pre-kickoff to the pre-kickoff to the pre-CIP. Michael and Ileana, thank you for staying late and for your extra time. I do ask everyone, and I am looking in a mirror at this very moment, I ask everyone to actually read pre-CIP before the next round and make notes as Rosa has. I will consolidate all questions and send them to staff and come prepared to have a vigorous discussion in our next session in 2 weeks. Thank you very much.
I'm hoping we have a rainy weekend, so it'll give me a good excuse to sit down and read.
Yeah,
All right.
it took me, I think when I read the whole thing front to back, I think it took 2 hours I think that's what I told you, right, Kelly? I don't remember.
It's not bad.
It's not, it's long, but it's meaty. Oh, and that was just the 36 pages. Not
That's
not
just
the appendices.
That's what I'm saying. Read the 36, give them the appendices just to know where it is. And if you really want to dig in, you will find time. So,
yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You read it and there's a lot of meat in there, and that's why I was taking notes the whole time and kind of, but I would assume give yourself about that much time.
Yeah.
Unless you're a fast reader.
All right, let's close there, and we'll see you all in 2 weeks. And reach out anytime. Thank you so much. Michael, go ahead.
Kelly, Rosa, can you stick around 5 minutes?
Sure.
All right.
Thanks,
guys.
everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
Ileana.
Bye, everyone.
You can stop recording.
You do that?
Did you start? Because I didn't see it actually say it started recording.
Yeah, it did. It told me